Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with your host, AJ Mahari. This podcast will give you an in-depth understanding of borderline personality disorder, whether you have it or a loved one, partner, ex, friend, adult child, or sibling of someone with borderline personality disorder. AJ Mahari is a counselor and trauma recovery coach who has 30 years experience working with those surviving borderline personality relationship breakups in all relationship types, healing from codependency, inner child healing, family of origin healing, and self-differentiation, narcissistic abuse recovery, and much more. Keeping it real to help you heal. Abuse is not love. You can find this podcast at ajmahari.ca, where you can also purchase and book sessions with AJ Mahari. Please also subscribe to AJ Mahari's YouTube channel at youtube.com/AJ Mahari.
AJ Mahari here. I received a question from someone, and the question went like this. Why do I spend so much time ruminating on whether I did anything wrong in the relationship with the person with BPD or perhaps NPD, and usually largely people with BPD untreated in these relationships? Did I do anything wrong? Why do I spend so much time ruminating about that? And is she going to go on and find someone better, the person says, than me? Or are you ruminating about if your ex is going to go and find someone, quote, better than you, unquote, who won't do whatever it is that you think that you did wrong, that you can't stop ruminating about? And then the person ended the question with, do I need to worry about this? Well, so many people are worried about this, and that is a very strong indicator, along with continued rumination after a certain point in time, that people not only need to get into their healing and recovery, their own healing recovery process for this, which I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, but that people are not able to let go, and that it is codependency, and it can be pretty significant to severe when people are still ruminating on, did I do anything wrong? Could I possibly, what if I only didn't do this, or if I did this, or what if I tried harder? None of these things are really the responsibility of the codependent, but yet they will be replayed in rumination, the cognitive dissonance. And what's the key element here for people with codependency after these, when you're trying to survive the BPD relationship breakup? It's the reality that you just can't let go because you don't feel finished, you don't have closure, you don't understand what happened. Those are all the things that I help people to deal with in sessions. So again, out here to work with you if I resonate with you. So I just want to say it's not your fault what happens with an untreated BPD or a narcissist, or if they're comorbidities, or both, or they have traits of both, or they're BPD with traits of NPD. It's not your fault. And what I've said before is for codependence, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself, your responsibility to get into a healing recovery process, because without doing so, it elongates and makes worse the rumination, is he or she going to want to find someone better than me, or that it's all going to work out with? And the answer to that is no, because they have inherent patterns, and nothing's going to change for them unless a lot of significant therapy. So no, they're not going to go find somebody better than you, or somebody who can do this or that better than you did, or this instead of that, and all the things that so many do ruminate about. And also, the person that asked the question was like, well, so do I have to worry about this? Well, rumination is sort of like worrying, only worse, and it keeps you stuck. So this was a great question. So the answer is no, they're not going to go on and find somebody better than you. No, they're not going to go on and be really happy with someone else. They're going to repeat the same patterns over and over and over again unless they ever seek treatment. And then by seeking treatment, they need years of therapy. So then I just wanted to key in on something here, because this is a really great question. And I thought, that more than just answer that question, which I hope I have, but of course I know that if you're ruminating and worrying about it and you feel like you're still thinking, well, they're going to find somebody better than you, or they're going to go to the next guy or the next woman, and they're going to get along fine and be all happy. Well, no, they're not. But what you might also benefit from knowing a little bit more about, I'm sure you have the experience of knowing what rumination is, but what's happening when people are ruminating? Rumination differs from emotional processing. So rumination, by the very nature and definition of it, keeps you stuck. It's very painful, and the more you ruminate, you're not making any movement emotionally. You're not going to feel better. It's very hard to break the patterns, but that's what I help clients to do too. If you resonate with me, I'm out here to work with you. So rumination is a very stressful magnifier of, and many people are prone to it, especially after these, trying to survive a BPD relationship breakup. What happened? No closure. Sometimes people have no idea why the person with BPD just all of a sudden, 1 minute you're really close, it was great, and then they're gone, and people are like, what? And it's very confusing. Rumination is a habit of obsessing over negative events, or a negative event, which, somebody that you think is going to be the person for you, your significant other, build a family, or have already built a family together, and you thought this was going to be the person that you were going to grow old with. Well, it's pretty shocking because all of a sudden, like some people see all kinds of red flags and some people don't get so many red flags, and then boom, they're just out of there. They just ghost you, they abandon you, they discard you, they betray you, all of that. And it's horrifically painful, as I know I don't have to tell people. Rumination is a habit of obsessing over these really painful, negative, sudden, ununderstandable, making no sense. People just feel so lost with that. And ruminating has negative effects to both the mind and the body. So when people are ruminating, basically people are telling themselves, maybe without realizing it, that they, or you're aware that you just know how to make sense out of what just happened, right? Like, you love this person, and then you find out they're not who you thought they were, and then they're gone. Or maybe you had to leave them. And so you can't make any sense out of that logically. It's like, what happened? And it can take people a while. Again, why I recommend getting into healing recovery journey for yourself and for codependency, family of origin, inner child healing, individuation, etc., is because the answers, and to make it make sense, is not to focus on the borderline, because what they do doesn't make sense to your world, to you, to your understanding. So you need to understand yourself and your own history better and do some healing work there. And the more that someone ruminates because they're trying to make sense out of something, and the lack of closure, along with the cognitive dissonance right after these relationship breakups, it becomes more difficult to let go of the ruminative tendencies. So people that are ruminating, most people don't set out to do that, but it's just sort of like an unfortunate and very painful byproduct of a BPD relationship breakup. And we may be trying to make, again, the key thing there is people are trying to make sense out of what just happened, which is very understandable, but it isn't going to help you to really start to move forward and to be able to heal. So it keeps you stuck in this place of trying to make sense of what happened. If I resonate with you, I'm out here to work with you to help you get through that and change that. It is really a process for people. So whatever the reason that a person can't stop thinking about the X, then the more you think about it, the more you ruminate on it, then the self-blame that kicks in with codependency, which is not your fault, goes back to something else that you've been hurt by in childhood you may or may not be consciously aware of. It's just trying to make sense. And the idea behind, not everyone is thinking this, but the idea behind trying to make it make sense is so that you can fix it, right? You want to fix it so you can get that person back, so you can feel the way that you used to feel. And a lot of people with codependency don't feel like they're going to be okay at all without this person, right? And that's not the case, but it feels that way. The defining aspect of rumination that differentiates it from regular problem solving or perhaps a little bit of overthinking something or exploring something is the unproductively negative focus that rumination takes. Rumination may involve going over the details of a situation in one's head and or talking to friends about it. And even sometimes when I'm working with clients, they're very much involved in explaining to me, telling me what happened, and their ruminations. Like they will repeat themselves and their ruminations. And then the goal when people are working with me is how do we help, how do I help each client to get past that, to get through that? Because otherwise rumination can last a long time in working towards surviving the BPD relationship breakup to going towards thriving from it, like in spite of it, down the road through the process of therapy. So, key thing too, how does rumination differ from emotional processing? If we don't think about our problems, how can we hope to solve them or learn to process them, right? Like you can't just ignore what happened recently, or for some people months ago, or for some people even a year, 2, 3, or multiple years ago. And they're still ruminating and they're still stuck. Even if they moved on somehow with their life, they kind of can't stop thinking about that BPD-X and make any sense out of what happened. And people who don't get help after the BPD-X and in surviving BPD relationship breakup often end up with, another cluster B. And then it might not work out in another cluster B. Not everybody, but more often than not. So, wouldn't some thinking about things make sense? Well, rumination is not processing, and therefore it keeps you stuck. And you're stuck wholly on the negative aspects of it, doubting yourself. Why did this person do this? Because there's no closure, there's no answers. And people with codependency, after the BPD relationship breakup, you so much think as people with BPD in the relationships and or in the breakup phase, if you hear, they are often trying to tell you that it was your fault. They're often projecting it all out and blaming you. So you combine that with codependent tendency to think that it's your fault and there's some way you're supposed to be able to fix it. All this adds to the ruminating, sort of just circular, going around in your head, driving you crazy all day, kind of stuckness, because you're not able to make any logical sense out of it and you're not processing your emotions. So rumination involves negative thought patterns that are immersive or repetitive. And for many people, just so overwhelming, and people don't know how to break free of them. And I can help people with that too, again, out here to work with you if I resonate with you. And many people slip into rumination because you're trying to process the incredible pain, hurt, and disbelief, lack of closure, and no logical reason why the relationship just ended, or whenever it did end. And what distinguishes rumination or dwelling on problems from productive emotional processing or searching for solutions is that rumination doesn't generate new ways of thinking, new behaviors, or new possibilities. Ruminative thinkers go over the same information repeatedly without change and stay in a very negative mindset, but a very emotionally painful place, because you're not processing anything emotionally. You're just going in these circles that continue to increase your pain. And if that's you today, I hope that, if I resonate with you, reach out, let's work on this, let's help you to understand what's happening and to break through and to break the patterns and do the processing work that will help you. And most people after BPD relationship breakup, they know they're ruminating, but you might not have realized the gravity of that or what that really means, how it increases your pain, and how it keeps you absolutely stuck. Rumination feeds a lot of false hope that you're going to get that person back, that if you could just figure it out, what I do wrong. It feeds a lot of false hope when there isn't really hope there, okay? And often, even if people do recycle these relationships, as I've said so many times, they just recycle out of them. The cycle takes, the whole thing happens again, and then you're back at square one, or you might have still been at square one, and square one is a really, really painful place to be. So rumination has a really negative core bent because it's based on negative core beliefs that you may not be consciously aware about yourself. That doesn't mean it was your fault what happened with the person with BPD at all. And rumination often includes thought patterns that involve pessimism and many cognitive distortions. And what do I mean by that? Well, in this case, one cognitive distortion that everybody has is, what did I do wrong? Could I have done something better? That's two, right? That somehow that you could do or still could do, or if you only did this instead of that, or did this faster or not, and you know, that person would still be there with you. So that one negative core belief in this ruminating and worrying about the borderline going, your ex going on to somebody better or somebody perfect, or they're going to get all happy over there, is all driven by the fact that you can't process what happened and you can't process your emotions, and that's what I help people to do, along with many other things. So again, reach out to someone. If I'm not the one that you resonate with or want to work with, make sure you reach out to someone, because rumination is serious, and people don't break out of it by themselves, because the cognitive distortions that are fueling your rumination right now are a lot about your ex and that relationship and why to break up and what happened, and none of it makes any sense, and your agony and pain. But a lot of it also goes back to family of origin and childhood issues. So it's multi-layered. And what are the signs of rumination? Well, focusing on a problem for more than a few idle minutes, feeling worse than you started out feeling after you ruminated, no movement toward accepting or moving on, no closure to a viable solution. So there is a viable solution in surviving the BPD relationship breakup, but many people still ruminating and focusing on the borderline and blaming themselves are not only reenacting something from childhood and what codependency really means, because codependency is a mental health challenge, not a personality disorder. But the thing is, you get no closer to a viable solution because you're going in circles, and you need to get into a healing recovery process to know what the viable solution is, because people are driven to want it to be getting back into the relationship, and that's not going to be the viable solution that everybody is hoping would be. And so when that solution isn't on the table, no matter how many times you've tried, and really you should go no contact, the thing is, then that just fuels the rumination even more. And if you're having sporadic contact with an ex, that's going to fuel the rumination even more. What can you really do about rumination? Well, rumination can be really difficult to give up or to break through and to be able to stop, especially if you don't recognize it as rumination. Most people after the BPD relationship breakup do. But still, you can't just stop it because you're ruminating. Or you likely don't know how to stop it. So it's got a lot to do with stress and all kinds of emotion, which could be anger. There's loss. There's all kinds of emotion. And processing your emotions in a healing and recovery process, as I'm out here to work with clients to help with that, will help to diminish and eventually, help you to get away from the rumination. So rumination, especially for people with codependency, surviving the relationship, trying to survive BPD relationship breakup, is really a protective function of codependence still externalizing out what you really need to work on in therapy, but it's painful and it's scary for people. But I would encourage you to, check it out, and if I resonate with you, book a session. Let's talk about it. Let's help you out with this. And when people are ruminating, you're not dealing effectively or in a healthy manner with your negative emotions. So the key thing to all rumination is people are going in circles because they can't let go. So that's an important thing. And remember, you're not responsible for an untreated person with BPD and how the relationship ends and how you get betrayed and how hurt you get and how many people feel fooled and duped. And so again, If you're thinking that it's going to be great with the next person, it isn't. But even my saying that here or in any other, podcast or audio, video, or whatever have you, it's only just going to bounce into your rumination, and you're just going to go harder in that cycle. But I think that, they are going to be happier with somebody else, and they are going to, quote, find somebody better than me, unquote. So rumination is blocking your ability to process what happened in an emotional way, and people with codependency deflect that out, project that out, externalize that out, and that is what creates more focus on it must be my fault, and if only I could figure out what I did wrong or what I could do righter, neither of which is the case, right? That's not what happened, it's not your fault. Then this rumination cycle just leads people to trying to figure out a maze, an enigma that doesn't have a solution. So I hope that gives you food for thought, and it's a really serious thing. And if you are stuck ruminating, you are stuck, period. And you're not able to let go. And that's a multi-layered issue as well. Stuck with the false hope, stuck with thinking it was your fault. Because if you really think, and people do think it's their fault, the codependents, then what you're doing is you're taking too much responsibility as codependent again, because you're thinking, well, if it was my fault, then I can just change something about me and I can get him or her back. You see how everything is sort of cycling around in rumination to keep you stuck with this false hope, this idea that if it was you will somehow be able to fix it, and you can't fix it. And you need to get into therapy to work through all of the different aspects of this and the multi-layered process so that you really can break free from the rumination and really start to get into your emotional processing, among other things, and then be able to start a process where you're learning more about yourself, family of origin work, all the things I've talked about here, but start a process of letting go, which is not only held up by what happened with the BPD, suddenly, confusingly makes no sense, but also something from your family of origin. Hope that was helpful, and take care as always.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with counselor and trauma recovery coach AJ Mahari, keeping it real to help you heal. Abuse is not love. You can find this podcast website with blogs and more information and purchase some book sessions with AJ Mahari at ajmahari.ca to help you with your healing and recovery journey from any relationship type with somebody with borderline personality. Please also check AJ's other website, bpdbreakups.com, for blog posts and more information. AJ's membership site can be found at ajmahari.co. Please keep tuning in, and if you're not subscribed to AJ Mahari's YouTube channel, please check it out at youtube.com/AJ Mahari.